So in this very brief presentation with voiceover, we're going to be looking at the association War Resisters International. This was formed in reaction to the slaughter, really, of the First World War, with a mission not only to oppose all war, but also to strive to eradicate its causes. The founding declaration of War Resisters International, established in 1921, was "War is a crime against humanity. I am therefore determined not to support any kind of war and to strive for the removal of all causes of war." The WRI was established in the Netherlands, and then it was moved a couple of years later to the UK, and Herbert Ranham Brown became the director of the movement until his death in 1941. As we can read from the obituary that was written upon his death, the War Resisters International, in the course of the past 27 years, has become far more than a worldwide organization standing uncompromisingly for pacifism. It has become a great living family, bound together by ties of deep comradeship and a common philosophy of nonviolence. It was the spirit of Ranham Brown which created and sustained it. No one I have ever known expressed in his own life and action more clearly the principles which he held. So the first thing to note here is that this is a pacifist organization, as it says on the third line, standing uncompromisingly for pacifism. As we've seen already, I think at the beginning of this course in the introductory presentations, the movements that we are looking at in this course in general, but in this week in particular, are not really pacifist, but should be defined as peace movements, meaning organizations and NGOs in certain cases that refuse, that acknowledge that in certain moments and cases acknowledge the necessity and the importance of armed defense, but deem immoral engaging in certain activities, armed activities like the occupation of the Palestinian territories, for example. So this is the first thing to note, that the War Resisters International remains a pacifist, was and remains a pacifist organization, while most of the Israeli organizations that we're going to see later on in later slides classify as a peace movement. But what is very interesting and very important is that the WRI, when it was first established in 1921, it was meant to function as a coordinating body of local and international, transnational coordinating body of groups, smaller local groups. For this reason, it managed to maintain contact and attract a number of individual pacifists from all over the world. It really managed to attract some of the world's most better known pacifist thinkers and activists, from Gandhi to Bertrand Russell to Martin Niemöller to Danilo Dolci, to maybe less famous ones. But it's also important that as a coordinating body, very often War Resisters International was the only organization to which lone conscientious objectors somewhere in the world was the only place where they could turn for advice, for connections, for networking, very often being lonely and completely opposed to what was going on in the mainstream of their respect of the various countries in which they resided. So the first international conference of the War Resisters International was held in England in 1925. At that time, there were 42 affiliated groups of war resistors in 19 countries and various individual resistors that were associated with the movement. There was a governing body, of course, that was an international council of the WRI, and the members of the councils were elected for a period of 3 years at the various international conferences. As mentioned earlier, one of the main functions of WRI is to encourage and support the individuals, especially those who feel alone, do not have a network of support to defend their stand of conscience. This is just a few points to introduce this organization, because in fact the very first conscientious objectors that we find in Israel were associated to WRI, as we shall see, and established their own organization. And here, which was called War Resisters International Israel. And if you follow me to the next set of slides, we'll hear more about them. Thank you.